you believe in miracles?
Absolutely.
That's where we're starting off today.
Absolutely.
Oh boy, the chaos is insane in college sports. It is wild.
The National Collegiate Chaotic Athletic Association.
I'm throwing my hands up. I'm throwing my hands up because what we're seeing now in college sports across every sport is just it's out of control. It's out of control. And now we got the 1980 Miracle on Ice team in the White House talking to Trump about how ridiculous everything is. We got Troy Aikman coming out saying, "I'm done with NIL. This is ridiculous." There's a wave coming. There's a wave of people saying this is dumb.
Listen, it's similar. It's similar to males competing against females. 80% of America is against males competing against females. All right, it's probably more with the NIL. It's probably 90% of America. There hasn't been a poll on it because these senators in the state of Pennsylvania, who I've been communicating with, both the Democratic and the Republican. And through you, we've been communicating, and the local congressman here in my district. The McCormick's main man is a former Pitt football player, and he's on he's on a team with me. So I've been communicating with them about this whole NIL absurdity and how it has to stop, but nothing seems to be getting going. But hopefully, now we have the Mike Ruzioni from that Miracle team. Is a friend of mine. He's an athletic director. I'm going to call him. I'm going to definitely call him this week. But he's the assistant athletic director at BU, and along with Troy Aikman, that's awesome. But if you look at the firings, what is it? A dozen and a half now? 12, 15? I don't know.
Oh, and still, we are up to 28 coaching changes this year.
My word! In the NCAA, that is.
Now I forget what the record was. I remember it was in 20. We go back to an earlier podcast. We brought that up, but it was in 2023. The old record was like 14 or 12.
What is it now?
So we have blown past that.
And look, coming into the state of Pennsylvania, that whole Franklin situation. He's down. He's down there at Virginia Tech, taking all of our Pennsylvania athletes down to Virginia Tech, which is pathetic. You understand? And they hire. I mean, look, if they think that hiring this guy from Iowa State is the answer, I would tell you from my perspective, he's not. Okay, I think an alumni, a former Penn State alumni who's played on a national championship team or has played, for one of those top 10 ranked teams and knows the university would have been an ideal choice. And I'm really against this hiring because I don't look, if they wanted a mediocre guy, they had one. They had one in James. You understand?
That's the question right now as far as like Penn State goes, because from everything you can't judge anything till it happens, right? But like from everything that everybody says, Matt Campbell is the guy. He's a ball coach. He knows X's and O's. He's more of an actual football coach versus what James Franklin was, where it was more, the pomp and circumstance and all that kind of stuff. He put on a show. So I give Matt Campbell credit for what he did at Iowa State. I mean, they have no budget. They've got nothing. And he built that into a program. 100% credit where credit's due. But now the argument is you did more with less. Can you do more with more? That's hard. That's a different level of success that you're trying to achieve, because when you don't have any expectations, exceeding those expectations is really easy. Keeping everyone happy is really easy. And the only time will tell to see what actually comes of it. But
Andrew, the proof is in the pudding, man. The proof is in the pudding. When it comes to college athletics at that next level, the proof is in the pudding. And this guy, this guy. And can you beat Ohio State? Can you beat Ohio State? Can you beat Michigan?
That's it.
You understand? And that
we're not going up against West Virginia.
That's my whole point.
We're not. That's not who we're playing. The goal is beat Ohio State.
You got a big
now
name.
Beat Indiana.
They needed to have a big name up there. One of the former guys, I threw the name Monchek out, but there's a boatload of
Mm-hmm.
other guys that are former players, that are big-time coaches.
Mm-hmm.
Monchek was a head coach in the NFL. He's been down that road, and he wasn't that successful, but him being up there, being from Scranton, Pennsylvania, being a Pennsylvania guy would have been huge, or someone like him. I think the guy, look,
Yeah.
and now they're saying they want to spend $30 million. They committed $30 million of NIL money to pay for the football players, and $15 million. You go over those numbers real fast. Go ahead.
So that was the point I'm going to make is like you did more with less at Iowa State, but when you do more with less, that means you're not paying the kids millions of dollars. So now that you have more, how do you manage the egos? How do you manage the salary cap? Whatever, like, because there is no salary cap. It's just whatever the school can pay. But how do you manage that? How do you manage that in a locker room that with the transfer portal, people can leave at any point? How do you manage that with 17-year-olds, with 17 to 22-year-olds? How do you manage that? It's really hard. You have to have a very special group of young men who are focused not on the money but on the team, and it's hard. It's really hard. And we're going to find out. We're going to find out if he can do it.
Listen, man, the alumni at the University of Pittsburgh and at Penn State should be throwing up right now. Mm-hmm. Okay, Pennsylvania is the toughest state in the country for athletics. We got big time guys in the state. Look at the wrestling program. Look at the wrestling program right across the street. You said it's less than a mile, right? It's less than a mile. All Penn State had to do is, rather than paying Franklin a boatload of money, rather than paying the kids a boatload of money, just walk across the street and see what the guys at what is it? The hall is what's the name? Rec Hall. I wrestled in Rec Hall, man. I would tell you, all they had to do is walk over there and see the guys. What are they doing? They're getting on their knees and they're praying, man. They're got a bunch of tough Pennsylvania kids. I'm not real happy with this Japanese kid that they brought over. We're going to talk about that later on. But the thing is, Andrew, if you look at the guy who just won the Heisman Trophy, which someone predicted that was going to be the case, I think on our second or third podcast this year, because he was a Spanish American kid and he spoke bilingual, and I felt that was going to be a big draw. There was two Spanish kids, by the way. One of them the kid from Vanderbilt's a state champ wrestler out of New Mexico. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love both the kids, but the point is, it was all about God, all about, which disappoints me, and I'm shifting around a little bit. But if you look at the center of success, it's God related, it's Jesus related. And if you look at the Mendoza's number 15, he's from Florida. He's a Tim Tebow kid. He was, I assure you, when he was in high school and even in college today, he's professing God. He's not professing Christ enough and Jesus enough, but he's professing God. I think he's been muzzled like Tim Tebow was muzzled back in 2010 when the NCAA, shut him up and said no more scriptures on his face or on his shirts or on their towels. But that's how bad the NCAA is, Andrew. They have basically made such a chaotic, corrupt, crazy environment. Yeah. Franklin was winning up at State College. You understand? Down at LSU, they were winning down at LSU too. But so what LSU and what Penn State does, two top schools in the country for alumni, right? What they do is they add bigger payrolls to their coaches, right? And they steal coaches from other universities. And what they do is they're going to add more money. Right, more money. Why don't you just play a rivalry? Maybe you forgot about your rivalry, because I would tell you Tulane is playing in the national championship playoffs. Little Tulane, the Green Wave, which used to be LSU's big rival, Andrew. That was a big rivalry game at the end of the season, like Pitt and Penn State. So neither one of them have a rivalry, and both of them are falling apart. So maybe what LSU needs to do is go back to basics. Orgeron. Man, they had two former players on my brother George's football team when he played, coaching. Alumni were coaching, and Penn State, was recruiting local Pennsylvania kids and doing just fine until the money, to the NIL money, and that's the NCAA, who has basically corrupted the college athletics, Andrew. And if you look, rivalries are what it's all about, man. I watched the Army Navy game. Go watch that game. All right, that's true football. Any of the people watching us, that's college athletics, man. I watched a little bit of volleyball over the weekend and some soccer over the weekend. Man, these kids are going after it, man. It was awesome to see NC State and Washington going at it, to watch Pitt and Nebraska and Texas A&M and all these different, and man, they're going after it. You understand?
Let's pivot right off that point, because that's a good point. So you watch the Army Navy game. These guys, it's like you're watching, like you said, real college amateur athletics. Right?
And Navy's 10-2. So, Navy's 10-2 and going to a nice bowl. Yeah. I mean, they ain't paying their guys. The guys were fired up. Listen, Andrew, they were fighting each other. We had these military guys in each other's face.
It meant something.
Yeah, and look, they were in shape. No fat guys, overweight 100 pounds and 50 pounds like the NFL guys and the college guys. They're in good shape. The guys, man, they were going after it. It was a great game. I mean, it came down to like the last. I only watched the last quarter. Well, I don't watch football in general. I just like to peep in and watch. But it was an awesome demonstration of amateur athletics. And that's what I saw in the Army-Navy game. That's what I saw in the women's volleyball. And that's what I saw in the men's soccer, the national championships that I tuned in on. And that's what we're losing. We're losing a great American pastime called amateur athletics. And we just had we just had the guys from the 1980 Olympic team speak out to join us. Our voice is the loudest voice and the most consistent voice against changing NIL. And the NCAA has no idea what they're doing. They legalized college athletes to gamble. To even say that it's legal for a college athlete to gamble on professional sports, that's a sin. It's corrupt. It's evil. And a couple of the conference teams spoke out, and they reversed it. So we need more than ever. Look, Pennsylvania, Andrew. Pennsylvania, we're in our 250, praise God, our big celebration this year. Pennsylvania is the center of our 250th independence, right? Coming up this year. And all over the place, they have all kinds of celebrations planned. But listen, that wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for the Minutemen of Pennsylvania. The revolutionaries that got their guns and they went down to Valley Forge with George Washington. He was getting his butt kicked. He was getting knocked around. You understand? And what they did in Valley Forge was they started the comeback right here in Pennsylvania. So we don't need none of you to get your guns. Leave them at home for now. Okay. I know us Pennsylvania hunters and outdoorsmen and everyone's out in the country. We got a lot of guns, and I commend you for it. It's a great sport. Hunting is great. I just want to make just a quick statement in between, but no hunting on Sundays during Lent. I think the governor and the Republicans, they said that was a bipartisan decision to hunt during Advent on Sundays, which they need to change that around. But anyway, getting back to the NCAA's total failure of our athletes, of our alumni, Andrew, and it needs to get the fans. Look, there's one good thing that happened to LSU and Penn State. They're going to toilet bowls this year, and Pitt, but they're all going to toilet bowls this year. At least the fans aren't going to have to dig in and pay thousands and thousands of dollars to fly around the country to these stupid playoffs that the NCAA also created, which to me is a catastrophe, right? These kids are here to get an education. They're not here to be professional athletes. So what needs to happen as part of this NIL, Andrew? They need to cut back. And look, when I played the AP and the UPI, I picked the national championship. We were number 2 one year. We beat number 1 Georgia. We moved up to number 2 behind Clemson. But that was the polls, and I thought we would beat Clemson. I thought we would have beat Clemson that year. But the thing is that's how they did it for 100 years. They chose them, right? But I think one number one playing against number two, or maybe even four teams was maybe acceptable, was doable. Now they're talking, these idiots are talking about a
Yeah, it's crazy.
16-team playoff. They're up to 12. And remember what I said to you, Andrew. These guys, man, they're young men. They didn't buy into 16 and 17 games. You understand? And the injuries.
Let's talk about the actual schedule.
Look, and the
Because it's crazy.
look.
The national championship this year is on January 19th.
Look.
It's but just when you say it out loud. Okay, so you got the coaching changes, right? You got the transfer portal. You got the playoffs. The football season goes from whatever, Labor Day, August 30th to January 19th. That's a different school year.
And then they got spring
That's
football a month later.
semester.
Then they all got spring football a month later.
Right. Well, yeah, 100%. So it's this whole thing of the actual schedule. So listen, the NFL and any sports league, there's a schedule. There is there's a no tampering policy. There's free agency. There's the draft. There's the lead up to the draft. There's the OTAs, training camp, preseason, regular season. There's a schedule. There has to be a schedule. In college football, there is no schedule. Chaos rules the day, and it's not only like the football schedule doesn't make sense, where like the coach can leave before the playoffs and the kids can transfer out and opt out of bowl games, and Notre Dame doesn't even want to play in a bowl game, which is a whole other ball of wax. But they're not going to class because the school year is ended and they got to transfer to a different school to get enrolled for the next semester, but then they can't play on the team that made the playoff. We went through this last year with Penn State and Bo Prabula and all of that. It made no sense at that time. And this year, it's even worse. It's so Michigan falls onto even harder times than they were. I don't know what's going on with that athletic department up there, but something's got to change. But whatever. So the coach gets fired at Michigan, and we just went through all these this whole coach search and every blah, blah, blah. What's Michigan supposed to do? They're sitting there and they're like, okay, well, the rumor mill starts going and they're like, oh, we're going to get Kalen DeBoer down at Alabama and this guy and that guy. Alabama's playing in a game on Friday. How can you have a coach just think about that from the mentality, the mentality of the team.
What a pathetic distraction!
That's what it is. It's just distraction after distraction. It's crazy. It makes no sense. And how can you, as a real sport, you're making billions of dollars? How can you? It's like an affront on the actual sport because it's your playoffs. So you're compromising your playoffs. You're compromising your championship. You're compromising the best teams. You're basically pillaging the best teams of the sport. You're all right, awesome. Ole Miss, you made it all the way through the season. You're the number 6 team going into the playoffs. Oh, by the way, you don't get your coach. Oh, by the way, we're gonna pull your staff away. Oh, by the way, kids need to transfer if they don't want to be on this team next year because your coach just went over here, so you got to go to LSU now. Nothing makes sense. And on top of that, to the Penn State example from last year, it might not be the starters, but when you have 5-star kids who are the next round of players coming up, and you're in the national championship game or in the playoffs, those 5-star kids that are freshmen, sophomores that beginning of the season, they're getting their feet wet, they're redshirted, kind of working their way up. By the end of the season, you're full go. You're a rotational player. And the next year you take that big step and be a starter and everything. But now you're a part of the team. You're a part of the rotation. That changes the game. That changes the whole outcome of the whole sport. It's ridiculous. Hey, quick time out here. Are you subscribed to the channel? It doesn't cost you anything. It's free. Please do it. It helps us bring the content to you that ESPN won't cover. You guys are great. Okay, back to the show.
Those young athletes, those young players are becoming part of the tradition. They're becoming part of great tradition at, LSU, Penn State, Pitt, Florida State. Just go right down the line of some of these programs that have totally fallen apart. Yeah. You understand? Clemson, So the whole concept has been created by the NCAA, and I'm of the opinion, if you add it all up, the NIL, the transfer portal, they're not making any sense, right? The men competing against females, and by the way, South Carolina beat the you know what out of the Penn State girls this past week.
Mm-hmm.
They have guys. They give guys scholarships.
Yeah, that's a whole other thing. Yeah,
to compete with the basketball practice players. They give guys scholarships to play against the girls at practice. I mean, is it sick?
Yep.
It's sick. So
what's the point? What's the point?
We're going to talk about straightening out the NCAA, and ultimately, the men who were at the White House, those great, Michael Ruzioni. I'm going to call him too, by the way. I mentioned it earlier. He's a friend of mine. Tony Siragusa was tight with Michael Ruzioni. I met him a couple of times and hung out with him. I had a friend of mine up north, Bobby Bonapane, went to BU with him, and they were buddies. So those Italian cats, they all hang out together. So I got in with the athletic mob. They introduced me to him. He's a great guy, by the way. But I'm going to give him a call. And it was awesome that they were in the White House with the President of the United States. This is a bipartisan thing. I'm sure that not all of those athletes, those tremendous. They beat the Russians in 1980. It was an unbelievable event, and that's amateur athletics, and that's what's so exciting about it. You understand?
That was the epitome of amateur athletics. That was
so. What
movie about it?
What we need to push for, just for now, is all of us together, all the Minutemen in Pennsylvania and across the country. I know we've had a tremendous amount of people watch various shows of ours. I mean, we're over we've done a couple shows so far. We're up over 250,000 total on people viewing our program. So look, what we need you to do too is join the men that were just in the White House. They're Republicans and Democrats. Those guys, I'm sure, they don't care. They're all against NIL. Aikman, he was one of my dear friends. Mark Stepnoski was his center for the Dallas Cowboys, a big kid from Erie, Pennsylvania. I mean, I'm going to reach out to him too and say, look, we really need to come on full press, and everybody needs to be Minutemen, and all the alumni need to make noise and say, hey, we want the NIL to stop dead now. Do you understand? First and foremost, and we need the NCAA to be taken over. There needs to be a congressional. I've been saying this on almost every one of our shows. There needs to be a congressional oversight committee that takes over the NCAA and deals with these particular issues that we're addressing. They're still letting males compete against females. There's not a lot of them. People say, oh, what's the big deal? There's only maybe a dozen or two. Well, a dozen or two, they ruin it for thousands and thousands because they break everybody's records. We had this conversation, Andrew. We don't need, look, the college football playoffs, getting back to stealing people. So the fella who's at JMU right now, who's going to UCLA, he's from Pottsville, Pennsylvania. I know him. He was at Holy Cross. I know him. I sent them a local kid. My daughter was being recruited by Holy Cross for track and field, and I was up there. I talked with them. Oh yeah, they knew me and I knew them, and we had a nice conversation. And I turned them on to a couple of local kids from Bethlehem Catholic and from the East Penn League here, District 11. And he recruited them. They helped him win, and he's a great guy. So now getting back to what you said, JMU is playing in the national championship playoff, right? JMU, but now what they do is they stole him. UCLA stole him, and he's on his way. He's not even going to coach JMU in the championship series, for God's sake. And what an insult for him and for his kids and for all of them that are there. And I'm disappointed in that he would leave. I mean, those kids just
Tulane as well. I forgot that Tulane lost their coach too. He's going to
Florida. So I would tell you,
when you look at it from like those schools' perspective, JMU, Tulane, this is massive for them. Like massive exposure for the actual like school. Massive like endowment can come in from this. If they win a game, if they play it close, like that is humongous for the actual institution, but they can't keep the team
Well,
together.
it's a
It's
sin. It's
insane.
really a sin. It's really a sin.
It's a crime against the
And
sport.
against the kids. Those kids.
Worst of all the kids. Worst of all the kids.
I remember
Yes.
that Kelly. That's why I couldn't stand Kelly, because he ran out
Yep.
on kids at Cincinnati to go to Notre Dame. Then he ran out on the kids from Notre Dame to go to LSU. They're a bunch of whores. It's pathetic. And,
Yeah. That was 15
and
years
let me
ago.
tell you, who's created it? Who's created all this is the NCAA. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
they have fallen apart. And let me tell you, Andrew, the biggest problem is they've never wore a jockstrap in their lives. They never competed in football or lacrosse
Mm-hmm.
or wrestling or any of the great sports, hockey, volleyball, basketball. They've never competed in them. They don't know what team together everyone accomplishes more. They all need to watch the Army Navy game. That's what they need to do. Okay, that was team. That game was like, wow, was so awesome. And you see the Ivy League. The Ivy League has separated from the NCAA basically, right?
Mm-hmm.
But in hockey, Cornell competes with Michigan and with all the top schools, as well as Harvard. And now those men were speaking out. I'm sure Michael Ruzioni, he's at BU. He's an assistant athletic director. He sees it.
Mm-hmm.
BU competes with these schools, and they go head to head with them. My son was wrestling at Cornell. My daughter was playing volleyball there. I mean, Cornell hockey, forget about it. You couldn't get a seat. There was 8, 9, 10,000 people going to a hockey match, Andrew. But here's the thing. This whole NIL is ruining all the sports across the board, and that is something that we all need to join together. And look, man, Andrew, make that point again about their eyes. Make that point.
Well, that's it. No, I mean, when it comes down to it, if you want to really make a change, where if it's in politics, if it's in sports, if it's anything that you want to really see a change, it depends on where you want to put your eyeballs and what attention you want to give to it. Because your attention these days, if it's on your phone, if it's on the TV, it's on the computer, if you're not paying attention to it, they're not making money and they're not running ads. And the sooner everyone figures out that your eyes and your clicks and everything are directly impacting the money flow, it changes. And I heard an interview, I think I said this before, but I heard an interview where someone was like, I think they were talking about Kellogg's and all these big food brands and, with the poisons in the food and all that kind of stuff. And they're like, you don't need to drop Kellogg's stock price 50%. If you do that, they will do anything. They will bend over backwards to make the public happy. But if you make their stock price drop 5%, they will be in absolute just panic mode, because that's all these companies care about is money. That's what anyone, if you're lying to yourself, if you're sitting here in 2025, almost 2026, and you're thinking anyone is out there to help or for the betterment of other people or children or kids in sports. It is all about money. And like we said this before, I don't blame the kids. I don't even blame the coaches, because they're all in it. They're all in the system. You got to look at people above the system, people running the system, the people at the NCAA. They have had every opportunity over the last decade plus to roll out a proposed plan that would allow for the kids to be compensated. NIL isn't a bad thing when you say name, image, and likeness. That's great. What's bad is when you just say, oh, that bag of money you were bringing in the back door, just bring it in the front door now. There's no rules. There has to be rules. There has to be a procedure. And then they haven't done it, so now it's out of control, and now it has to be stopped because it's out of control.
Andrew, listen, man, your hardships, your trials, your tribulations, St. Paul, is what builds you. Okay, giving kids millions of dollars on campus, we see what's going on. They're gambling. There's mental illness. You understand? There's obesity. They're eating and drinking everything out there. If you see these kids, I'm like, what the? They're not just the NFL guys are a bunch of obese, overweight, the linemen.
Mm-hmm.
Same in the colleges, man. The guys are all obese. You see very few healthy athletes anymore, especially on the interior line. But the thing is, Andrew,
Mm-hmm.
the thing is, man, the root of all evil is money. They got this gambling craze that they're promoting. The NCAA is permitting it. I mean, ESPN, on everything you turn, they have the lines, the totals, the this, the that, the so forth and so on all these different things that they're televising. So they're going into the houses getting into the children's heads with their phones. It's all so bad. That's why someone needs to come in and just shut them down and take it over and say, look, no more 25 and $30 million deals, right?
Yep.
No more flashing gambling advertising on the college football and basketball and the like. You understand? And no more males competing against females. It's just those are three that got to happen. And then the cherry on top is we don't want any more foreign athletes. And that's something that, watching the soccer and the volleyball, they had some big woman. She must have been from Russia. She had to be like 28 or Russia, one of the Eastern Bloc. Mm-hmm. She had a name, Jenna Janakovic. She was playing for Kansas. This woman was so big. She could have been a guy for all as I know, from one of these Eastern Blocs. And it's very important with this craziness that's going on around our country. We got to know who's coming into our country. You understand? These athletes, they're letting 25,000 foreign athletes from all these different countries, right? From Asia, from Africa, from Europe, from North America, South America. We got to know who these athletes are, okay? They just can't give 25,000 scholarships away when we have our American athletes on top of that competing. And there's so much more to it, Andrew. But ultimately, ultimately, right? These are our children and our grandchildren, right? Mm-hmm. These are your great-grandchildren. These are your nephews, your nieces, right? These are your neighbors. These are the kids from your local community that you have to protect. We, the people, the Minutemen, the revolutionaries, you've got to stand up and you've got to make noise, okay? It all starts right here in Pennsylvania, and it starts up at State College first. I mean, Andrew's a Penn State alumni. I have a lot of friends, very famous friends that went there, but ultimately, they need to bring back amateur athletics. They need to bring back Christ, Jesus. They can't shut up Mendoza, the Heisman Trophy winner, and that he can only say, "Oh, God to the glory." Man, look, no, Tim Tebow, number 15, by the way. Mendoza's number 15, a Florida kid. We have Tim Tebow, number 15. He was professing Christ. It's gotten so bad. The NCAA has gotten so bad. The cherry on top, too, is that they're muffling the kids and they don't want them to talk about Jesus because they think it's politically correct not to talk about Jesus, just to talk about God. But look, no, this isn't Buddha God. This isn't the Indian God. This is God of the Christians, God of Jesus, God of the Messiah, not the Muslim God, not the Jewish God. This is our God, our Messiah, Jesus Christ, and they should not be muffling. That's to add to insult, Andrew. They should not be muffling Heisman Trophy winners and college athletes from talking about Jesus because let me just close the show with this, Andrew. If you look up all these universities across the country, you know what they were first? They were Christian colleges that were based on teaching the scriptures of Jesus Christ and of God. Do you understand? Mm-hmm. They were monasteries. They were what do you call where they theological institute. They all started out as, and that's all of them. That's University of Pittsburgh, Penn State, Cornell, all of them. The Ivy Leagues. You look at them. They were all Christian based, centered around good Christian men and women. And for them to want to deny Christ, like TCU, they didn't want to talk about Texas Christian and Notre Dame. Look, Notre Dame, aren't you supposed to be humble? You aren't you supposed to be humble? Or, you accept the bowl bid, and if you think you're that big time, take that money and donate it to the poor families in that community. Why don't you do something like that? Don't stick your chest out and think that you're big time and you don't and you shouldn't be playing in a bowl game. Show your humility, show your godliness, and that's what we need in college athletics, Andrew.
Yep, I got a laundry list of problems that I have with Notre Dame, but that's another podcast for another day. So thank you all for listening, and check back in with us because we're going to have another great conversation coming here shortly. And have a great day.